To Emily. A stranger handed me a key, another strange key. Left in a room of an unfamiliar apartment was an envelope addressed to me. The confession written in my husband's slightly quirky handwriting made the world before me wobble. Alone in the empty room, I cried out loud for the first time since my husband passed away. I am Emily, a part-time housewife turning 40 this year. Working at a pharmacy while bustling about daily with housework and child-rearing. I have 2 children, a son and a daughter. My son, who started elementary school this year, is a soccer kid. Though small, he's a strong-hearted child who doesn't hesitate to go up against older boys. My daughter is in preschool and a bit of a crier when dropping her off. But she loves taking care of younger children, a sweet kid. Their father, my husband Sam, was a classmate from my college days. A peaceful man who shuns conflict, always warmly watching over me and our children. But there were people who deeply hurt gentle Sam's heart. His own parents and his sister. One weekday night, after dinner, as the kids were getting ready for bed, my MIL and sister-in-law, Kate, showed up unannounced. "Big bro, there's a concert of my favorite band in Chicago next week. I need the car, okay?" Kate started with a demand without even greeting, to which my husband sighed deeply. "That's impossible, we have our son's soccer game this weekend." "Just leave that to your wife. There are plenty of soccer games, aren't there? It's not so easy to see my favorite band." "It's not about that. Kate can take the train." "Boo-hoo, big brother, you're so mean." With a cold response from my husband, the sister-in-law replied with a fake cry. Seeing her tearless crying face, the MIL scolded my husband fiercely. "Sam, you're her older brother, you should care for your sister. Kate is sensitive, you know." Boo-hoo. Sigh. Another sigh from my husband. I am appalled by the 38-year-old woman's boo-hoo. Then, my son, who should have been asleep, came out and tugged at my husband's shirt. "It's okay, Dad. Mom can take me. You don't have to worry about it." "Yay, what a sweet nephew I have. See, he says it's fine so you have to drive. If you break your promise, I'll curse you." "Hey." Ignoring my husband's response, they made a one-sided promise and left quickly. "I'm really sorry, both of you." My husband drooped his shoulders, and I had no words to complain. His parents had always poured all their love into the younger sister, barely taking care of my husband since he was the eldest. Naturally, the sister grew up spoiled, struggling with friendships and her career, now living a NEET life back at her parents'. But as the elderly parents' physical strength and retirement savings couldn't keep up with her demands, they moved near our house 3 years ago, relying on my husband. At first, my husband was happy to be relied upon, following every command from his parents and sister. But I've been working hard to break him out of this brainwashing, and he's starting to realize he's just being used. Still, he grew up without receiving love and can't seem to completely give up on his parents' affection. It seems he just can't bring himself to push them away. It pains me to see my husband like this, and it's tough on me and the kids, caught in the crossfire. So, for the sake of our family's peace, I was determined to take whatever time necessary to distance my husband from his parents. But I regret not having woken him up to reality sooner. At one point, he started complaining of back pain. When we went to the orthopedic doctor, they recommended a major hospital with a grave look, where a severe illness was discovered. He was given 6 months to live by the doctors. This illness had no symptoms until it was too far advanced, and by the time we realized, it was too late. Moreover, being only 40, the disease worsened unusually fast. I was so shocked, I can't even remember how I got home from the hospital. For a week, I scoured the internet for blogs about fighting illness, but I couldn't find the ending I wanted anywhere. All the while, my husband's illness was advancing. I didn't want to accept it, but I had to. Then, I took a leave from work to focus on his treatment and caring for our children. We made the most of his good days, going out to eat and traveling. He kept saying thank you and I'm sorry, and when he felt well, he'd help around the house. The kids, in their own way, understood his sickness and did their best to support him. Yet, the in-laws remained as awful as ever. When I told them about my husband's condition and his prognosis, his sister grimaced and said, "Oh, is it genetic? I'm safe, right?" Hearing that, the parents panicked, worrying it'll be terrible if Kate gets sick, and they insisted on testing her, even pressuring my husband's doctor. Not only I, but also his primary physician were appalled. And when it turned out his sister was fine, they started worrying about the cost, saying, "How much will treatment be? Don't expect a dime from us." There was not a word of concern for my husband, nor any sign of sadness. The indifference of his family seemed to drain the life even more from my already pale husband. I couldn't bear to see him hurt anymore and did everything to shield him. "I'm sorry, Emily, for leaving everything to you, even though they're my parents," he said, looking downcast. I held his hand tightly and said, "It's okay. I can do this if it keeps you well. You're my family, after all." Lifting his head, he seemed struck by my words, repeating, "Right, we're family." He seemed deep in thought for a while. Then he continued to fight for his life, in and out of the hospital. But 10 months after the diagnosis, he passed away. Holding our sobbing children, I had no time to cry myself as I arranged his funeral. I did inform his family, but all they said was, "Oh, I see." They didn't visit the hospital, and my husband was sent off without seeing his parents one last time. It was outrageous, considering their son had died. Just thinking about how he must have felt brought tears to my eyes. In the end, we received no support from them and faced the wake alone. Many from my husband's company and his friends came to offer their condolences and support. Just as everyone had arrived and the service was about to begin, his parents and sister finally showed up. They rushed to my husband's casket without even offering condolences to me, the mourning spouse, wailing, "Sam, why did this have to happen? Only 40 years old. He was just 40. Big brother, don't leave me behind." Their dramatic outburst caused even the older attendees to wipe away tears. It might seem natural for parents who lost a child too soon, but knowing what they had put my husband through, I felt nothing but anger. They didn't even visit the hospital, and now this. Words spilled out before I could catch them, and my mother-in-law's head snapped around to face me. "It's your fault. If you had only cared more about my son's health." "That's right. You're a failure of a wife, not caring properly for your husband's health." I had no business being scolded by these people. Yet, even knowing that, their harsh words pierced my heart. I've blamed myself, too, time and again. Thinking if only I had realized sooner, my husband might have been saved. Choking, unable to speak, my son raises his voice in my defense. "Mom did nothing wrong. Dad and the doctors said so too. Mom has been trying hard, for Dad and for us." "Oh, so now you've even charmed the doctor? At a time when my son was suffering from illness. What a terrible wife. Grandpa and Grandma, Auntie, none of you even visited Dad in the hospital." "That's not true, we're family. You just never saw us because you didn't come to the hospital. We visited him every day," held his hand. "Liar." My son glares at my lying sister-in-law, breathing heavily. Our ugly quarrel makes the room stir. They definitely never visited the hospital. No kind words were ever spoken by them. But here, I have no way to prove it. Emily. My parents, who had been looking after my daughter, come over, worried. They will be on my side, and if the argument continues, the in-laws will slip up. But continuing this argument will ruin the last chance to say goodbye to my husband. He wouldn't have wanted this, I'm sure of that. Hands cold to the fingertips, I clench them until my nails dig into the skin. "I need some air." Straining my voice, I leave the room, holding back my son who looks ready to pounce. Returning to the family section after calming the kids, the in-laws gaze down on us with a smug look. It's not about winning or losing, but knowing that doesn't ease the frustration. Throughout the wake and the funeral, the in-laws played the part of a grieving family, pushing their way forward as if it were their due. With a face like a mask, I could only hold my children's hands and bid farewell to my husband. In my listless state, a beautiful woman approached me and said, I'm Rachel, a colleague of Sam. I offer my deepest condolences. Ah, thank you. I murmur, looking dully as she shows concern. Then, after scanning the surroundings, Rachel pulls an envelope from her purse and places it in my hand. This is from Sam. Please read it when you're alone. Eh? As I stand there puzzled, she nods politely and leaves. Despite feeling suspicious of her actions, I tuck the letter into my purse. Later, while waiting for the cremation, away from the in-laws who were busy discussing how to use my husband's estate, I leave my children with my parents and open the letter in the restroom. Inside, written in my husband's distinctive handwriting, was a letter with an unfamiliar address in my hometown and the words "Absolutely do not tell my parents," along with a silver key. After the funeral, my parents offered to stay at our place for a while. Gratefully accepting, I began to sort through my husband's belongings and the caregiving bed. With each item, memories flooded back, making my heart ache. During this time, calls from the in-laws demanding the estate came non-stop. Overwhelmed by grief, I almost didn't care anymore, tempted to just give in to their demands. But the letter and key from Rachel gnawed at my curiosity, leading me to leave the kids with my parents and head to the address. It was a condominium in a newly developed area in my hometown, similar to a suburb in a US city. Inserting the key into the designated apartment door, it opened as expected to reveal a neatly renovated 3-bedroom unit. Empty of furniture and appliances, the room was bare except for one thing, an A4-sized brown envelope on the built-in kitchen counter. Among the items was a business card from some lawyer, and 3 sheets of stationery. The letter, written in my husband's somewhat unique handwriting, was filled with many words of apology and gratitude. I'm sorry for the tough times caused by my parents and sister. The previous owner of this condo was a friend, and I sold all the stocks I had been quietly investing in since before I was married to buy it. If you don't like it, feel free to sell it and turn it into cash. But please, move out of that apartment and escape from my parents. The husband of the colleague who delivered this letter is a lawyer, and he is holding my will. From the living room window, you can see my favorite cherry blossoms beautifully. I hope you all will like it. Thank you for giving me a family. I was truly happy to be married to you. Looking up from the letter, I could see the cherry-lined riverbank through the window without curtains. The petals of the cherry blossoms, past their peak, were scattered by the wind. Sam. In the empty room, my voice calling for my husband echoed. Of course, there was no answer. It was the first time I had cried out loud since losing my husband. When I returned to the apartment with my eyes swollen from crying, my parents and my in-laws were arguing in front of the room. Seeing me, my in-laws screamed, "Hey! Return our son's inheritance! It's been 2 weeks since the funeral. You didn't squander it, did you? You people." My parents turned red and trembled at the in-laws' vile insults. I gripped the envelope I was holding and looked straight at my in-laws. There is no inheritance left for you. As I flatly refused, my in-laws' eyes widened in shock. What? Are you planning to keep it all for yourself? I will share it with my children. We're his parents. You're just an unrelated outsider. Don't you think that's just absurd? Absurd or not, the law dictates that when a married man dies, his estate goes to his wife and children. You won't get a cent from me. Arg. My in-laws bit their lips. They probably knew they had no right to the inheritance. That's why they tried to make me out to be the villain in front of the mourners at the funeral and came to pressure me like this, trying to weaken me to take the money. Even now, my father-in-law persisted, showering me with vile words to break me down. Money grubber! Our son's death is your fault, seeking the inheritance with your terrible treatment, you wicked woman. Devil! I don't want to hear that from you. My rebuke, almost a yell, made my in-laws flinch for a moment. I glared at them with the deepest hatred I had ever felt in my life. And with every word, as if casting a curse, I spoke. I will never forgive you for disregarding my husband and treating him like a tool. I will never forgive you for continuing to defile him even after his death. Even if my husband forgives you, I never will. Ha! My expression and words made my mother-in-law let out a small scream. My father-in-law, slightly taken aback but defiant, glared back at me. You little girl! I'll sue you. I'll find evidence that you did something to my son and make sure you pay back the money. Please do, I'm ready for anything. I had no intention of giving anything my husband had left to these people. A few days later, my in-laws appeared with a person claiming to be a lawyer, holding what they claimed was my husband's will. I also summoned the lawyer who was the husband of my husband's colleague. The will brought by my in-laws was filled with convenient claims for them, such as being poisoned by the wife or leaving all the inheritance to the parents. Poor son. My mother-in-law wept bitterly, while my father-in-law kept nodding next to her. Facing them, my lawyer presented the real will. It clearly stated, all my estate goes to my wife and children. Nothing for my parents or sister. Since it's a notarized will, my in-laws could not overturn my husband's words. They probably never imagined that their compliant son would leave such a will rejecting them. I think I will never forget the dumbfounded looks on my in-laws' faces at that moment. My mother-in-law's face turned pale, her lips quivering. No way, my kind son would never do such a horrible thing. You all turned that kind son into a monster. At my words, my mother-in-law's eyes widened. Has she finally realized her mistake? Such a foolish person. My father-in-law, still oblivious to his mistakes, is muttering something under his breath. Seeing them like this, my lawyer smiles warmly. Well, forging a will and impersonating a lawyer without a license are crimes. Are you prepared? The color drains from the faces of my in-laws and the man claiming to be a lawyer. It seems they were not charged with major crimes for the will forgery and fake lawyer, but amidst the chaos, the children and I moved to the apartment prepared by my husband. By the time the in-laws noticed, the apartment was empty. Of course, I didn't tell them where we were going, and they never cared enough to know even my hometown. Apparently, my in-laws and sister-in-law had been squandering money, counting on my husband's inheritance since he was alive, panicking when they realized the money had escaped. They desperately looked for me. Then, my father-in-law, mistaking another woman for me from behind, tried to push her down the stairs in a fit of rage, but accidentally fell himself, sustaining serious injuries. He yelled, "The daughter-in-law did it," which led the police to contact me, but of course, I was innocent. Around the same time, my mother-in-law fell ill with a heart condition and screamed in the hospital. The daughter-in-law poisoned me, leading to another call from the police, but again, I was innocent. With their parents gone and struggling to survive, my sister-in-law committed shoplifting. Apparently, she mentioned my name as a guarantor, but I refused, saying, "She's a stranger to me." At this rate, it won't be long before the social services start asking me for help due to their financial difficulties. To avoid this, I filed for the termination of my marriage. It's sad to end the marriage with my husband, but the bonds and memories as a couple do not disappear. Even if the law doesn't recognize it, if I consider my husband as family, that's enough, he would surely say with a smile. Thus, I watched as my in-laws' world crumbled on their own accord, and started a new life with my children in the apartment my husband left us. 3 years later, I am working as a full-time employee at a local pharmacy, living peacefully with my children, now in elementary school. I've gotten used to life without my husband, but still, there are moments when the loneliness overwhelms me. Then, a year ago, a new member joined our family, a tabby cat with beautiful gold eyes, Max. My son found the abandoned kitten in the parking lot of our apartment, and after taking him in, he became part of our family. Max, time for dinner. Meow. Max, let's sleep together. Meow. Every time we call his name, he responds and rubs against our legs, making both the children and me utterly charmed. Moreover, Max seems to be a pacifist who dislikes fighting. When the kids and I are arguing, he appears out of nowhere and gently covers our mouths with his front paw, as if to say, "Fighting is bad, meow." When he does this, We all melt and forget what we were fighting about. He hates fighting, just like Dad used to, my daughter says with a beaming smile. Could he be Dad's reincarnation? My son jokingly adds, but with a hint of seriousness in his tone. I'm not one to believe in reincarnation, and even if it were true, it seems too soon. Yet, I've heard stories of departed cats returning to console their grieving owners by donning a new fur coat. If my husband came back to us by wearing the fur of a cat. I burst out laughing, imagining my husband trying to fit his large frame into a cat costume. Whether reincarnation exists or not, to me and the kids, my husband will always be the world's best dad, and Max, a precious member of our family. I will continue to cherish the peaceful time and family my husband left us. We're off. See ya. It's 7 a.m. on a weekday. The kids hustle to get ready for school, speak to Sam's photo, and head out the door. Have a good day. I too say goodbye to the smiling photo of my husband and open the front door. In front of the window, lined with beautiful cherry trees, Max, curled up, cries, meow.